Mr. President, I also rise to speak about another issue concerning the Armed Services Authorization Bill. And this is equally as serious and troublesome, and that's the issue of sexual violence. While the vast majority of our service members serve our country honorably and bravely and are simply the best our country has to offer, sexual violence in the military continues to occur at an alarming rate by a minority of service members who should not be serving. Despite Secretary Panetta's efforts to create a zero-tolerance policy in 2011, still more than 3,000 military sexual assaults were reported, but the DoD's estimates themselves think that number is much closer to 19,000 cases. In the words of the DoD, quote, "Sexual violence in the military is an affront to the basic American values we defend and may degrade military readiness, subvert strategic goodwill, and forever change the lives of victims and their families." All of our service branches have in place some version of a policy that sends convicted sex offenders to an administrative separation process for discharge. However, the most recent annual report on sexual assault in the military shows that in fiscal year 2011, 36% of convicted sexual offenders remained in the armed services despite these policies. If 1/3 of convicted sex offenders within the military are being retained, then clearly we must do better. Creating a uniform standard to correct deficiencies in the respective branch policies would be a good step forward. Experts reviewing current policies have found that the Navy has established a mandatory policy that calls for administrative discharge of any personnel who are convicted of a sexual offense. My amendment would require the Department to oversee that each of the service branches establish policies that would mandate service members of sex offense to be processed for administrative separation. This means that each such perpetrator would get due process, but that the process would be required. This amendment is common sense, and it's one that would strengthen the policies that the services have actually already put in place and reinforce DoD's zero-tolerance policy. I'm very pleased that Senators Collins and Snowe have joined me as co-sponsors of this amendment, and I want to thank their leadership among the other co-sponsors on this issue. I suggest an absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll. Mr. Akaka.